It never feels ordinary when a league title is on the line. No matter how inevitable it might seem on paper, points tally, form, goal difference, it still hits different when it actually happens. You feel the tension crackle through the air like static before a lightning strike. And this was no exception. Barcelona didn't just win the title. They walked into their neighbor's house, kicked off their shoes, and lit cigars in the living room. 2-0 at the RCDE Stadium. Champions of Spain for the 28th time. Again. There's something so sinister and poetic about sealing a title in your rival's backyard. That particular kind of cruelty that football gifts us when the script is just right. 2 years ago, it was 4-2. This time, more patient, more stubborn, but no less definitive. Espanyol wanted to write their own survival story, but Barcelona had other plans, and for a while it really did feel like Espanyol might gatecrash the party. You could feel the unease in the early moments. Barcelona were dominating the ball like an obsessive-compulsive, touching and retouching it as if afraid to let go. 80% possession in the first half, yet somehow Espanyol had them exactly where they wanted. High line exposed, midfield transitions sluggish. Gonzalez sneaking in behind like a cat burglar in daylight, and Puado, bless him, doing everything but actually score. It was a bizarre kind of control from Barcelona. Like they had all the ingredients for a gourmet meal, but forgot to turn on the stove. Espanyol, meanwhile, brought nothing but hunger and a crowbar. Szczesny, dragged out of whatever early retirement vacation he was enjoying, made more saves than anyone wearing a league-leading medal should be forced to. He doesn't even look surprised anymore, just weary, like someone trying to cancel his gym membership for the 5th time. The first half ended 0-0, but that didn't tell the story. Espanyol's expected goals sat at 1.3, Barcelona's 0.39. If football were a fair science, which, thank the football gods, it isn't, Espanyol should have had the champagne on ice. But this isn't a spreadsheet. This is a game that turns 17-year-olds into champions. And that's where it tilted. Yamal. You almost have to say his name twice just to believe it. 17 years old and playing like he already knows the ending to every match he steps into. He picked up the ball on the right wing, innocent enough, and then just, decided. Cut inside, left foot, top corner. You know, like people do in video games when they've turned the difficulty down and just want to enjoy themselves. That goal, that one strike, didn't just break the deadlock. It broke Espanyol. You could feel the volume dip in the stadium like someone had turned the amp off mid-chorus. The tension flipped instantly from maybe to oh no. Even then, Barcelona didn't strut. They didn't prance around as champions-elect. They did what they've done all season, looked deeply uncomfortable in their own brilliance. Misplaced passes, overhit crosses. Flick's side are many things, but calming is not one of them. And then, because football must always twist the knife, Yamal got clattered. Not in a tactical foul kind of way. Cabrera swung an arm into his stomach with the subtlety of a nightclub bouncer who's just been told he's losing his job. Red card. Espanyol down to 10. Still, even then, it felt like Barcelona were walking a tightrope made of dental floss. One lapse was all it would have taken. But then, of course, the kid turned up again. Injury time, nerves jangling, and Yamal slips it through to Fermin Lopez, whose finish was pure punctuation. The kind you put at the end of a novel that's going to live in your head for months. 2-0. Game over. League over. The bench exploded. Flick's tight-lipped grin somehow said more than 1,000 Pep-style slides across the turf ever could. He's done it. A domestic double in his first season. He's gone from is he the right man for the job to how long can we keep him? And that's where the beauty lies. This wasn't a coronation. This was survival in reverse. A team trying desperately not to lose everything, up against a team desperate to prove they still know how to win anything. The title race didn't end in fireworks. It ended in silence, pierced only by the sound of teenagers winning grown man trophies. Espanyol were brave, but Barcelona were cold. Not in the cruel way, in the we've seen this before, we know what this takes kind of way. They knew the script. They flipped the page. And now they get to write their own ending. It's strange how a game of football can feel like a season compressed into 90-something minutes. All the joy, panic, doubt, and delirium trapped inside one rectangular pitch spinning under the lights. And this match, this Espanyol versus Barcelona clash, it didn't just contain moments. It was a moment. Every heartbeat of it mattered. The first half was a riddle, not the elegant, poetic kind. More like a stubborn crossword clue that won't fit no matter how many times you try Lewandowski in different combinations. You watched Barcelona pass the ball like they were gently rocking it to sleep, side to side, back and forth. And yet, the longer they held it, the more you could feel it slipping out of their grasp. Espanyol, to their credit, didn't play like a side 5 points above the drop. They played like they'd just been told the earth was ending in 90 minutes, and this was their last shot to prove something to whoever's keeping score. From the 4th minute, when Gonzalez slipped behind Barcelona's perilously high line and dragged a shot just wide, the tone was set. The home fans smelled blood. They raised the volume like a crowd at a heavy metal concert, except with more tension and fewer guitars. Barcelona's defense, Araujo, Christensen, Eric Garcia, they were a tangle of limbs and nerves. Szczesny looked like the one adult in a group of teenagers trying to defuse a bomb with a bread knife. Time after time, Espanyol carved out opportunities. Puado, Espanyol's captain, made runs with the kind of conviction that makes you wish someone would just reward him with a goal, a trophy, a hug, anything. But Szczesny stood tall. He's not quick anymore, not smooth. But he's got that grizzled keeper thing going. Pure stubbornness wrapped in gloves. It went to halftime at 0-0, but if we're being honest, and this podcast is not in the business of polite lies, Espanyol should have led. By 1, maybe 2. Barcelona, champions in waiting, looked less like a title-winning side and more like a brilliant but confused orchestra, all tuning up at once. Yamal? Quiet. Olmo? Swarmed. Lewandowski? Present in body, but the mind looked like it was still on whatever spa retreat he took during his injury layoff. And then, the second half. Barcelona made a change. Flick brought on Balde. A little more pace, a little more width, and just maybe a little more chaos. Because that's what it took. A disruption. A crack in the formula. 7 minutes in, there it was. The moment. Lamine Yamal, 17 years old, playing like the world owes him answers. He got the ball from Olmo. A simple pass, no magic. The kind of pass you'd give your mate in a five-a-side. But Yamal doesn't do simple. He doesn't do expected. He cut inside, left foot, curled it, not blasted, not rifled, curled it into the far corner with the kind of finesse that makes the hairs on your arm ask questions. And just like that, it flipped. Barcelona, who had spent 45 minutes looking like a team being held hostage by their own tactical ideals, suddenly had a lead. They weren't brilliant, they weren't dominant, but they were ahead. From then on, the match descended into something between theater and therapy. Espanyol chased shadows, still occasionally threatening, but the belief started to leak out of them. Slowly, tragically, like a balloon with a pinhole. Then came the red card. Cabrera, rattled, frustrated, perhaps just overwhelmed by the teenage prodigy twisting him inside out all night, swung an arm right into Yamal's stomach. It wasn't smart. It wasn't subtle. It was, at best, a cry for help in the shape of a foul. The referee checked. The video assistant referee confirmed, and Espanyol were down to 10. Game management kicked in. Barcelona didn't exactly sparkle after that. They kind of coasted. Passed the ball around like a group of friends, stalling to avoid doing the dishes. Espanyol, for all their grit, couldn't make the breakthrough. Joffer came close. Cubarsí stopped him. Szczesny again came out swinging like the last night in a fading kingdom. And then, just when you thought we'd hit the slow fade to black, one last act. Lopez, Fermin Lopez, not even supposed to be the star tonight. But Yamal found him, slipped the ball through with the vision of someone 3 times his age, and Lopez buried it like he was closing a chapter. 2-0. That was it. You could see the shift. The Espanyol players sagged, the Barcelona bench rose, and Hansi Flick, ever the minimalist, just allowed himself a private nod. This was no fluke. It was built on decisions, on patience, on grit that doesn't get headlines. Barcelona, for all their turbulence, all their drama, all their identity crises, had done it again. Let's talk about these two teams. Not just what they did, but how they did it. Because if you're going to understand this night, you have to see it as more than just Espanyol 0, Barcelona 2. You have to look at it like a film with 2 protagonists, both convinced the movie is about them. One trying to escape death, the other chasing immortality. Espanyol were playing for survival, and they looked like it. There was nothing casual in their approach, nothing safe, nothing resigned. They played this match like a team whose house was literally on fire. You could feel it in every counterattack, every press, every time they dared to explore Barcelona's famously stupid high line. I mean, how many times did Gonzalez or Puado sneak through? How many times did Espanyol break through that velvet rope of possession and nearly crash the VIP party? A dozen? Maybe more. It wasn't pretty, but it was committed. It was honest. Espanyol did everything but score. They had more expected goals, better chances, more fire. They just didn't have the guy who finishes the sentence. No final word. But credit to them. They made Barcelona earn it. They didn't just roll over and let the champagne corks pop in peace. They made the champions-elect sweat like they were still taking the test. And Barcelona, well, they are confusing. Not bad, not perfect, just confusing. This is a team that has scored 95 goals in the league this season. A team that's been unbeaten in 17 straight matches. A team with one of the most electrifying teenagers on the planet. And yet, somehow, they always make you think they're about 5 seconds away from collapsing into a puddle of tactical anxiety. This is Flick's Barcelona. The version where possession is religion, but belief is optional. They have all the tools, all the passes, all the choreography. But do they make it look easy? Never. They don't play like champions. They play like survivors who've taken a course in elegance. You don't feel dominance with them. You feel dread, like at any moment the whole thing might unravel. Still, that dread is kind of what makes them fascinating. It's easy to talk about balance, about tactics, about formation shapes and pressing triggers. And sure, Flick made some solid decisions. Christensen and Araujo were brought in for stability. Lewandowski got the nod, despite still working his way back to form. Balde added width in the second half. Gavi came on to shut it down. All standard moves. All reasonable. But the truth is, Barcelona won this game because, as fragile as they sometimes look, they have moments of brilliance. Isolated, explosive moments that cut through all the tension. Yamal's goal, Lopez's finish, the little surges from Pedri. You can build a title-winning team out of patterns, but you seal a title with moments like that. And that's the difference between the two. Espanyol needed everything to go right. Every bounce, every call, every half chance. Barcelona, they just needed that one Yamal shot. That one pass at the end, because that's what this team has, the ability to survive their own chaos and still deliver the moment that kills you. But man, Espanyol, I don't want them to go down. Not after that. Not with that effort. They showed heart. They showed structure. They were maybe one striker away from being mid-table comfortable. Tonight, they played like their lives depended on it, and in some ways they did. They still have 2 games left to save themselves. And if there's any justice, and football rarely bothers with that, they'll stay up. This was not a match of a giant swatting away a fly. This was a real derby. It had the tension, the noise, the shoves, the fouls, the bad blood. It had Cabrera's red. It had Christensen dragging shirts and smiling. It had fans howling, fists clenched, hope rising and falling with every errant touch. It was football at its most ridiculous and raw. And for all of Barcelona's titles and trophies, for all of Espanyol's pain and pride, that's the thing we remember. Not the 2-0, not the statistics, but the feeling. The sensation that everything mattered. Let's dig into the faces, the people behind the noise. Because football, for all its tactics and statistics and match reports, is still a deeply human game. The moments live in our memory because of who made them happen and how. Let's begin, inevitably, with Lamine Yamal, the boy who is absolutely refusing to act his age. 17 years old, and he didn't just play the biggest match of Barcelona's season, he owned it. Scored 1, assisted 1, got a man sent off. That's a full adult CV in one night. What do you do with that? You just sit back and applaud, because you can't teach what he has. The way he dropped inside for that goal, it wasn't fast, it wasn't flashy. It was inevitable, like gravity. And the assist, it wasn't a pass. It was an invitation, an open door with a sign above it that said, "History, this way." Every time Yamal gets the ball, it feels like something might happen. Not something tactical, something emotional. That's what sets him apart. It's not about how many touches he has. It's about what he makes you feel with the ones he chooses. Right behind him was Fermin Lopez. You want unsung hero? Here he is. He comes on, plays like a man who's been reading every tweet about how he's not ready, and finishes with composure most seasoned strikers would envy. It was the goal that ended the match, and, weirdly, felt like it ended the season. He didn't just put the ball in the net, he closed the curtain. He wrote the final sentence. Then there's Chesney. Retired. Unretired. Somehow the guy keeps getting pulled back into the story like a weary detective in a noir film. One last job, except it's the 13th last job, and he still looks more reliable than half the defenders in Spain. He made 3 key saves, none of them spectacular, all of them essential. And when he got booked for time wasting, you could almost hear him say, "Yeah, I've earned this one." Pedri and De Jong, quietly vital. Not the fireworks show, the electric grid that powers the house. Without them, everything shorts out. Pedri especially. He's like a poet who's been given an Excel spreadsheet and told to make it rhyme. His movement between the lines, the way he links passes with barely their touches, it's so easy to miss and so devastating when it works. And then there's Christensen. Booked, bruised, battered. The kind of performance that smells like liniment and regret. He'll have ice on everything tomorrow. But he put his body in the way, did the ugly things, pulled shirts when he had to, and walked off with a medal in his pocket. Espanyol had warriors too. Puado ran himself into the floor. If lungs could bleed, his would've. He chased everything, pressed everything, fought every duel like it was his last. If the goal had come, he'd have deserved it more than anyone. It didn't. But his performance, you frame that. You show that to young players and say this is what it means. Cabrera, though, what do you even say? He lost his head. You could see it bubbling all game, Yamal toying with him, spinning off him, brushing past him like wind through a gate. And finally he snapped. A flailing arm, a video assistant referee check, a red card, and that was that. It'll hurt. It'll live with him. Because for all the aggression, the dismissal wasn't brutal. It was clumsy, which somehow makes it worse. Even the subs had roles to play. Balde came on and stretched the game. Gavi, entering like a polite wrecking ball, offered just enough edge to see it through. Cubarsí made a vital block late on that might have saved the result. All around the pitch, not perfect players, but perfect effort. And in a match like this, that's what survives. And Flick, yes, Hansi Flick, with his little trenchcoat smirk and that look of a man who's somehow still surprised when things go to plan, he pulled it off. Again. First season. Domestic double. And not once did it feel comfortable. That's the strangest part of this Barcelona season. They've been great, but they've never felt great. They felt like a man driving a Ferrari with the engine light on. Fast, yes, but dangerous. Still, here they are, champions. Because when it mattered, the right players stood up. They didn't need a perfect game. They just needed enough perfect moments. And that's it. That's the story. Barcelona walk out of the RCDE Stadium with another title in their pocket. Espanyol walk out with another heartbreak. And we, the lucky ones watching, got 97 minutes of fear, fight, flair, and finally, finality. This has been Across the Pitch. Over and out.